update on the very latest information about the West Oxfordshire property market. And we're looking here specifically at the first 6 months of 2024, and then we're going to look ahead at what we think might happen in the last half of the year. So without further ado, let's dive in. And we're looking here at those properties which were sold subject to contract across all agents in the first 6 months of the year, and that equates to 684 sales agreed, not all of which will complete, and indeed some will fall through. But it's really interesting to see a few key figures. First of all, 29.7% of all sales agreed were in March. That was an exceptionally busy month. And June, which is normally a busy month, saw only 55 sales agreed, so a really quiet month. Unsurprisingly, because it's typical for our market, but nearly half of all sales agreed were 3-bedroom properties, but that equates more onto values. And if we look at what was actually selling, nearly or over 3/4 of all properties sold were under £500,000. And although we live in an expensive area and there are a significant proportion of properties above £500,000, the number of sales in that space was pretty quiet. And that's what I predicted in my last video. And if we look at what I'm predicting now, we'll see how that might change going forwards. Firstly, this is an exclusive bit of data from Rightmove. They've created this specifically for us for my video, and it shows supply and demand across West Oxfordshire in the first half of this year. And we can see that in green, demand outstrips supply, certainly for properties up to £350,000, and was about equal for those properties between £350,000 to £500,000, but that supply was in excess of demand for those above £500,000. So there are more properties, expensive properties, for sale than there were buyers for them, but we were really busy in the sort of £350,000 space, which equates to what we experienced in our offices in Witney and Ensham. This graph shows buyer demand across the whole of Oxfordshire, so it's not specifically West Oxfordshire, but it's really interesting to see that Oxfordshire is a really strongly performing market, and that currently demand is up 50% for people looking to buy in Oxfordshire compared with this time last year. So there is good, strong demand out there at the moment. Now, we've got the election out the way. We've got a new government in power. So that was one of the brakes on the housing market. The other is, of course, interest rates. And although we've not yet had the first Bank of England rate cut, it is widely anticipated. And if we look at this graph, it's really interesting. People don't realise this, but actually the big lenders have just recently already priced that in. And in fact, some of the big banks have reduced their lending rates by 33 base points or 0.33 of 1%. And so you can see at the far right of this graph that those average lending rates are already coming down. And that is what's going to fuel the housing market in the latter part of this year. So interestingly, and this is historic data, as in it's bang up to date, but this is from the Land Registry, and that's reporting what was agreed subject to contract sort of 6 months ago. House prices in West Oxfordshire for semi-detached and detached properties are already rising. And that is at odds with the wider southeast, which is in yellow. We're the blue blobs. But although it's not a huge rise, we're talking around 2% for detached properties. That is a strongly performing market, particularly when these were sales that happened, or were agreed half a year ago. So what's going to happen going forwards? We've got liftoff. This is going to be a really busy finish to the year. We've had the general election. We know the direction of travel and what they say goes because they have a strong majority. And we've already priced in the first of the Bank of England rate cuts for mortgage borrowers, and that will only improve as those rate cuts actually happen. Transaction volumes we saw in June, they were very low. We're already experiencing a busy start to the second half of the year, and that's only going to increase, as I say, now the election is out the way and those rate cuts are impending. We're going to see more of a rebalance of supply and demand. Demand is very strong. Supply is growing and indeed has outstripped demand in some areas of the market at this point. But we feel that the more expensive properties, i.e. those above £500,000, are going to start to gain traction, and there'll be a busier part of the market at the more premium end. And of course, we've already seen a very strong focus on housing from the new government. Their first speech was about housing. The King's speech mentioned several measures relating specifically to housing, and there is a big focus on the housing market going forwards. And lastly, dare I say the C word, Christmas is not that far away. It might be getting on for 30 degrees outside, but if you look at the average time to agree a sale and then complete on that sale, now is the time to put your house on the market in order to get it sold and for you to move in time for Christmas. So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news if you're thinking in that sort of terms, but it's 184 days on average from marketing your property to agreeing a sale on your property and that completing. And so that is why you need to plan in plenty of time. As ever, got any questions, queries, comments about this, let us know what you'd like me to cover next time. Please do give us a call, or indeed, if you'd like us to give you some specific advice about what the latest housing market is doing for you and your property, then do get in touch. Thanks for your attention.